It's so good. Hey, Leonard, how's it going?
Good. How's it going, Toufi?
Good, good. So I'm excited that we're doing episode 2 here to talk about like how the CRTX and the Earth64 they can work together. I'm super excited to see that because you and I and Josh and Dan, we've talked so many times about a lot of the things, and we've done like the Toda, like YouBase at the core, and there's a lot of stuff to be done in the future there. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you guys did also with the with Josh did with the butterfly protocol. And I think now that you're doing the CRTX, it's super exciting because that's like the vision is coming to life. And I feel with the CRTX, like the Cortex, for those that don't know, the Cortex is the ability for each and every user to use that browser, the CRTX browser, that gives you the ongoing ownership of everything that you do online. You own it. It's yours, okay? And then you can do what you want to do with it. And with Earth64, what we do, Earth64 powers currently businesses, individuals as well, but they want to build businesses because Earth64 is the ultimate Earth-based NFT. So it's not a ledger-based NFT that is extractive, that can cost a lot of money or whatnot. Yet it is the most secure NFT by design. So the way we've been doing with the Earth64, we pre-sold the first 218 we call them buckets, and each or containers, but not NFC, not fungible container. When somebody buys this bucket, they have 2.2 quadrillion Earth-based NFTs. There's a limit of how many Earth-based NFTs you can have because Earth is finite. So there's about 2.2 quadrillion per implementation per user, but there's a maximum that you're able to reach is 1,700 Earth-based NFTs. So that's we've talked in first episode a little bit introduction on this, a little bit introduction on the CRTX, and we went on a demo with your CRTX, which was great. I think today we're going to talk about like a little bit deeper into what does that mean to the end user, like how much value does the end user, what can they do that they couldn't have done before? Because people, they like to hear that they can do things better, but they also like to hear that they can do things they couldn't have done before, right? And they can really evaluate, is this something that I want to do or not? Nobody wanted to use email when they knew how to do faxes. They're like, oh, you know. And Henry Ford says, if I were to ask people, they would have said that we wanted faster horses. Okay,
that's right.
Right. So cool. So if you don't mind, give us a like rehash of like the CRTX, and then we can dive deep.
Yeah. So I would say CRTX or the Cortex application is a new way to publish and browse on a fully distributed web. So that means that the domain names and the domain names are created with Butterfly protocol, where the domains are really trees of NFTs. So there's a kind of a top level domain. It could be .Toufi. It could be .Earth64. In Cortex, it's .crtx, where you can create, endless subdomains underneath those. Each of those are NFTs, but then within the Cortex application, each of the pages that you create is more like a file system. So if you think of the URL as being like toufi.com, the part after the slash that gives, the home of all the elements of the website, that's kind of what you create in everything that you do within Cortex. And it makes it really easy to publish in a fully distributed environment. The default is IPFS, but or even you can do it locally. But eventually you'll be able to store all of your things that you create, all the files, all the notes, all the comments that you link to other pages that people create will all be yours, part of your data and underneath your personal domain that you own within Cortex.
Cool, cool. And for folks that they're not in the crypto space, I think it's extremely important that they understand that the majority of what they have seen in crypto, especially if they're technical, I get faced with that a lot. People they're not that they are extremely technical, and they get into the crypto space at this point. They feel like what is the point? Like it's going to be extremely costly. It's like a substituting centralized with this other system called like ledger-based blockchain or whatnot. The beauty about what's being done here, guys, is that it's not substituting. It's actually eliminating that third party, but providing a service layer as opposed to dependency layer. What does that mean? Currently, if you were to do transaction, you take your money and send it from, Alice sends to Bob. Both Alice and Bob, they depend on that third party called the bank. If they do it on Bitcoin, they depend on that third party called the miners, which wasn't initially in Bitcoin. It was fully decentralized, but that's okay. That's okay. That's through the evolution of things. What we're doing here is that Alice can send to Bob. It doesn't depend on a third party. However, there are third parties that they can store your data as a service. They can say like, and why is that so different? Because when somebody's providing you with a service, you can switch to another service, which means the competition is always a race to the top, not race to the bottom. When you depend on them, the race becomes to the bottom. Historically speaking, that's a fact. If you ask anyone across the globe, when there's a third party that you depend on, the evolution of that third party may not be aligned with your evolution. So for folks that are not into crypto, they appreciate to hear that a lot, okay, especially if they are, extremely technical. So because they need to find out why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because it's like when you have a service that charges you $1 per month for storage, and in a year from now, they're going to charge you 50 cents for the same storage. But if you depend on them, like the gas fees with Ethereum, it's $1 now, it can be $30 next month because you depend on them, okay? But that's changing so rapidly. So back to one of the things that Leonard and I, we discussed before we started the recording of this, I guess, to rehash here. So we envision those components right now. Earth64 is this DAO that enables that every day mints one single NFT on Ethereum, just one single. Whoever owns this NFT, they buy it every day. There's one buyer, then it mints the second one, and so on and so forth, a third. The owner of this NFT, they have the ability to burn it, to then receive what it's called, the actual container of 2.2 quadrillion Earth-based NFTs. So this is beautiful. Why is that so beautiful? Because somebody could be building a cryptocurrency, so like for Central Bank of England or for decentralized individuals of Indonesia or whatever. It doesn't matter. Everyone needs to have the ability to prove to the rest of the world that you have the smallest unit in your system, that it's finite and it's unique. That's what this thing gives you. And that's why people, they're buying, because they want to implement it. In this relationship here that we have with the Earth64 and Cortex, so Cortex, they bought a single one of those, which means that now they have 2.2 quadrillion. And they're passing on some of that ownership that they have to the users of Cortex. Why would the user want that? Well, this is when we can start talking about the fun here, okay? So imagine you're a user of Cortex, you download the browser, and they say, we're giving you 1 million NFT containers, Earth-based NFTs, part of this. You own them. Each and every one of those, you might say, but they're empty. They're NFTs, the container that's empty. Okay, what can I put in it? But there's 1 million of them. The user could be an artist. They can put art into it. People, they already know about the NFT of art. But there's a lot more than that. It's not about only art. The user could be software developer. They may want to sell their software. The user might be music, artists that they might want to put a song. So whoever owns this NFT have the ability to listen to this song on unlimited amount of times, but then whoever that user that bought this NFT can resell it. That's the beauty about like the Earth-based NFTs. So imagine you download this browser, the Cortex. It gives you the ability to own all of your data and whatnot. That's great. But we all know we're living more and more online, and we all know that there's a lot that you're doing that has a value. If that thing that has a value, where do you store it? If you look behind the Leonard here, where do you store the books? There's bookshelf. Okay, in the physical world, we've done those containerized things that you can access the book very quickly. So that's what this 1 million locations, those NFTs, they are provided to each and every user, and that's why the user, gets that browser to kind of. That's one of the benefits. That's an additional benefit that that wasn't mentioned. It's not even in your version 1.1, 1.0 of your white paper. And I think it's good that we're talking about it now, because the people, they get to see live the evolution of your things, of how your white paper can evolve from 1.0 to 1.1 to 1.2 and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think we're coming to an age very quickly, and I think the combination of these things, where Cortex kind of gives you your idea of like a physical space for digital assets, because you have a room for maybe your art through all these different human readable domains that become like file stores. They become like rooms in your house. But then with the inexpensive tokenization, it's kind of like you can go through all these rooms that are going to be all over the world and leave your mark. You could leave, it could be, think of it like a stamp or a signature, and how cool is it going to be to get like a stamp or a signature from somebody famous, and that becomes something that's immutable, that becomes permanent. But because it's of the way this is now architected, it's incredibly inexpensive. So we don't have to pay gas fees of $50-$100. We're getting to because of this, we're going to get to a place very quickly where an NFT can be, and your signature, your personal stamp, and the places you've been that are really branded as you and unique to you, could be almost like a tag or graffiti or something like that. It's really unique to you, but it becomes so inexpensive that you can leave it anywhere, and it becomes kind of a living history of all the things that are happening in a very immutable way. It's going to be really cool.
Right. Yeah, so I feel like that's not only Leonard, not only myself who feel that. People that they've been working in this space for quite some time, they could see that this is what's coming next, that each and every user everywhere in the world, they're going to have their own, it's kind of like your bookshelf, but your own like NFT store, where you kind of like preserve your things that they're valuable to you. So that's one of the benefits of having this partnership. And if you think about it from the perspective that like some user, they might say, well, I don't know what to do with this, I'm not gonna use it. We remember people back in the days that they said like, okay, I bought this computer, but it comes with this thing, it's called email or whatnot. I mean, I don't remember that much, but we're not that old. Leonard and I were not ancient, but we kind of remember we were at the beginning of it, right? So it's something that a lot of things that existed and people, they didn't use them. This is one of those things that we cannot guarantee to anybody that it's going to be useful to everybody, but we know for sure it's going to be useful for some people, and we know for sure that that's the direction that the world is heading. When Leonard says it's like low cost, why is it low cost? Is because it has a security by design, highest possible security by design, by construct, for every single NFT. If you want to store the Mona Lisa there, you can, or if you want to store like a dollar there, or if you want to store like 1,001 or whatever, what you want to store into it. There are ways of storing that when you have that browser that Cortex is giving you a lot of abilities of while you're browsing the internet. Sometimes you might compose a certain song, or write a book, or write a chapter or an article or something like that, and you own it. Well, if you own it, you may want to give it for free to everyone on the planet. You can, And if you want to put it in a certain marketplace, you also can. It has that interoperability, so it gives it that containerized model, and you can sell it if you want and get paid, or you can just give it for free. Bottom line, the service that can provide you with the ability, let's say, to sell it, that's a service. So you don't depend on them. The service, you take that NFT, put it on that service. The service can say, it's like, hey, we have a listing. Leonard has this, song. If you click on this, you own it. You have crypto. Your wallet, basically, the user's wallet ends up sending, let's say, $1 for this, ends up owning that NFT. Whoever owns this NFT has access to listen to the song every single time they want. But then they don't want it anymore. They want to resell it. Remember in the old days of the disc, you could have resold this disc. Well, they can resell this as well. They can resell it. If you resell it, whoever owns the NFT gets to listen to the song as well. From the artist's perspective, they know that the system doesn't enable people to make a copy illegitimately. It gives, fans usually, they don't want to do that anyway. So it gives them the ability to do that. And we only covered artists, but like I said, it can be for software sales, product sales, components, games, video games, all kind of stuff. So that's why I feel it's super exciting, and I looking forward to see how this partnership. We've talked before with Josh and Dan as well about how the domain, sub-level domain, they can also be part of that huge binary tree as well, which is like, because you recall Leonard we're saying with the next evolution that Josh was thinking from butterfly perspective, where he can have it mapped to like one of those Earth-based NFTs, 2.2 quadrillion, right? And that's why I think he bought one of those too. So I feel like it's exciting to see that the utilizations there. It's super awesome. For technologists here, I'm gonna make some points. So the whole thing will be like a huge binary tree. Okay, it's much bigger than this. It's called Earth64 because it has 64 levels. Okay, so the thing is, so let's say that this is like the butterfly, branch, and let's say this is the Cortex branch. The reason when we say interoperable, and it's interoperable by design, if you own tiny, let's say you keep going here, 51 levels, and you own the very, very smallest single NFT container that has the song. Someone here owns a tiny little container that has like the domain. Sorry, let the butterfly the other way around, the domain. But they want to exchange between each other. They're able to exchange peer-to-peer, no one in the middle whatsoever. Every computer knows how to traverse that tree back and forth. This is beautiful, okay? Now, they don't have to do it peer-to-peer. They could use the centralized system. If they want to trust the Central Bank of England, they can during that transaction. And then when they finish this transaction, they can do the next time, they can do it on some other ledger-based blockchain. That's the beauty of the interoperability by design. They don't have to depend on other layers. So that's unprecedented. So all of those things, they can be done with this architecture that is being built that couldn't have been done before. And we're excited to kind of like be working together here to bring it and make it reality. Hopefully people that they're buy those CRTX, they realize that they have that utility, because by knowing they have those utilities, they can use them effectively.
Yeah, and I think we haven't even talked much about the security by design, but in a world where all these files have domains and ownership and keys that are explicit, so many of the attack vectors, I'm sure there will be new ones, but so many of the current attack vectors that exist are going to be very difficult, or they're just not going to work in this model because it's really the security is built in at the individual data element layer.
Mm-hmm. Right. Cool.
So lots. I mean, that's why we're doing a series, because there's a lot to discuss around this architecture and the ways how, in terms of how many big problems that I think that we're dealing with today around authenticity and determining what's real and what's not on the web. That's a big reason why NFTs have become popular, of course, is because it's that ownership by design that's really built in. But we're going to see that authenticity expand. I think that's one thing that you and I have we've always seen eye to eye on a lot of these things, is because we're really after solving the same problem, which is making an authentic internet.
Right. I'm actually pleased on many different levels. We could talk about this, I guess, separately, but it's like a lot of people, because I remember like during the political things, you thought for the longest time that I have opposing views to you, but you continued everything, and you never really thought it's like, oh, he's on the right and I'm on the left or whatnot. This guy's Trump supporter, I'm like a Joe supporter or whatnot, Biden. But then after, I think it took maybe a year or two to realize that like I don't necessarily have strong political views because I don't know much about politics. Like I'm like much more into like science and engineering, but but I can be misunderstood very quickly, and I'm glad that you didn't. Your culture in your company and all that. It's pretty good because Josh is like that too. So I like that to working with you guys, and I feel like Dan and I were like that, and we work with a lot of people, but we get to be misunderstood many times because sometimes when we criticize, let's say, certain aspects of Ethereum, people they think that we're Ethereum haters. I mean, we only criticize things that we love, right? Like it's like we don't have time to criticize EOS because I'm not going to say anything, but we criticize Ethereum because we love Ethereum. So, when
I think. Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're on the side of finding I mean, I'm a scientist by training. I just want to find out what's real, what's true, and try and create things that are true and that work.
Right.
And so I think you and I both kind of orient ourselves towards that as much as possible.
Awesome. So I guess we're gonna have another episode. We're gonna get like deeper in technical stuff, where we invite Dan and Josh into it. But before we do people they're asking me about like a little bit more about like Earth64 or what's coming. So there's something that like I want to brainstorm with you, and it will be live, like we haven't really done.
Sure.
Okay. So currently, every single owner of one of those Ethereum-based NFTs. By the way, this is it's been geared for soft launch for quite some time, so there won't be any big publicity around it. But it has about 232 days of phenomenal. So far, we know 218 days because we pre-sold the first 218. The owner of each and every one of those, they can burn it after the 232nd day, and they can receive that container that you refer to it as non-fungible container or whatnot, which contains 2.2 quadrillion Earth-based NFTs. Those are like unique numbers, globally. Okay. Unique NFTs globally, containers that can put whatever they want to put in. So far that's what's been happening. When we started this entire project, and people, they're like, if you can solve this for like the Bank of England and you can solve this for Cardano, this is very rare. Like nobody's really solving for this CBDC and for, Avalanche, whatnot. It's very, very hard to find somebody's working on something that can solve for both of these. And this thing does solve for both of these guys, whether they want to enhance a current implementation or for future folks doing other implementations, because it's one of the pillars that people, they're building cryptocurrency or building whatever crypto projects or whatnot. So it's a pillar. It's not saying that it is the entire building. It is a pillar, but it's a phenomenal pillar that can enable a lot of stuff. So what we're thinking here, if each and every user, they own 2.2 quadrillion, would it make sense? And this is something I wanted to brainstorm with you and Josh. So we may not have the answer to that as well right now. Would it make sense? Because we said if that's $1 million and we started the actual price of it about 10,000 all the way. The last one was about $84,000. And by the time we actually release, the 232 would be about 100,000. So $100,000 for that entire bucket of business that people would buy. But that's the one that it's actually initially priced at $1 million. So that's still like an actual discount price, because that continues to, the smart contract automatically mints this next one when the previous one is sold. And it cannot mint unless the previous one is sold, which means that there's finite and it's limited the amount of supply as the demand comes in. But it will never ever sell for less than like the $100,000 or something. When people are buying it, they're buying it because they need to either resell it for more, or sometimes they just want to do actual implementation with it, like you guys are doing. So the thinking here is that, like, would we enable something that, so let's say NFT number 220, let's say they buy it for like $85,000. Should we enable that person to, because right now maybe they want to wait until it's $1 million and sell it, or they want to split it into many different pieces, but should we enable this person to have an automatically like an ERC20 under it, so then they can have, every time a buyer of this, they can have their own ERC20, so they can divide it to, like, let's say 1 million or 1 billion ERC20, so then that way they don't have to come up with the $80,000 all on their own. Do you see what I'm going with that?
Yeah.
So if they divide it, so let's say to 80,000 pieces, then they can have $1 each ERC20. So it's like a lot more, they can split it between them and their friends or whatnot, so they don't have to buy it one shot.
Yeah, I think that, I don't see why not.
Right.
I think, how would you imagine that kind of mapping out from the domain level?
So the owner of an ERC20 would either, there would be two options. The owner of ERC20 that is under, let's say, NFT 220, okay? NFT 220 has 2.2 quadrillion Earth-based NFTs. Perhaps one of the ways of, like, we can say that it can have up to 2.2 quadrillion ERC20s, okay? So every owner of every one of those, they can say, like, at some point, if you burn this, because you're still on the NFT, what if you burn it and they have like the ERC20, what happens? They're like, whoa, hold on a sec. So if you burn it, then automatically they get your NFT that is associated with it. If they don't want to do it one-on-one, they can do it like 1,000 to 1 or 1,000,000 to 1. They can say it's like, we're only going to have, let's say, 2.2 billion. That means every million, they have one. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is basically, you have one ERC20. Let's say you bought it for like $100. It gives you 1 million of those Earth-based NFTs if that user ends up burning it. That's the thinking out loud here. We're thinking, I guess we'll brainstorm more with like Josh and Dan. It's not too early, not too late. Timing is perfect for these things, and I like. The reason why I'm saying this, Leonard, because it's like I like the listeners to see that, like, this isn't like one of those talks where we have a script or whatnot. We're real people, real developers building things, and we brainstorm live, and that's how we do things. You know, we're not faking anything here.
Yeah, I'm excited for I think where this is going, which is being able to give our users the ability to mint for very low cost. And maybe we'll pick up with that next time. But I think,
right.
As right now, I think you look at NFTs and they're about expensive things. So the artwork. But I think where we're heading with this, where we'll be able to supply with our users, is being able to get to the point where NFTs and being able to mint them and create them and use them for a wide variety of use cases in terms of creating kind of different clubs and organizations and allowing people access to things. It's just going to blow up when these things become, as expensive as paper, essentially.
Yeah, and especially Leonard, especially Earth-based NFTs, because currently ledger-based NFTs, they're problematic because they're unique to that ledger. What we're doing with the Earth-based NFTs, which I've alluded to earlier, we're using numbering system already unique to planet Earth. And what we did back in 2020, we timestamped them. That's also unique to everyone on the planet. Like nobody tells you that, like, oh, May 22nd, 2008 didn't happen yet. Everybody knows that's like in history, right? So it's like effectively there's certain things that we all agreed on as a humanity, the coordinates as well. So we bring them together, timestamp them, and that's why when we're saying there's 1,700 of those buckets, each and every one 2.2 quadrillion, they're finite for life. Like there's never gonna be a clone of this planet Earth. This is it. That's planet Earth, and that's when it was timestamped. If anybody does anything in the future, it would look like they have copied it because they're not going to be able to go back in time and timestamp those little, what you call them, Sato servers. And that Sato server, each Sato server can manage a single NFT. So that's what you have, 2.2 quadrillion Sato servers. Anyway, I guess is there anything else you want to cover on this?
No, I'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
Bye.